I got passed over for a promotion. What do I do now? After a keynote a while back, someone came up to me with that exact question. And I could tell from their tone of voice and from their nonverbals, they were still processing it. It was still raw. So I asked them, how long ago was this? Was it recent? And they said it was about 6 weeks ago. And I realized they had some personal healing to do. It's a question I hear more than you might think, though. When somebody gets passed over for a promotion, most people either stew in the hurt or they clean up their resume and they're ready to move on and leave their organization. And both of those responses are completely understandable, but neither one of those responses actually helps. So let's talk about what actually does help and what to do when you don't get promoted. Now, you get to be disappointed. Absolutely, you get to be disappointed. Disappointment means that you cared and that you tried and that you gave it your all. And that is absolutely not a weakness. That's an investment. It's an investment you were making in yourself, and it's an investment that you were hoping to make in the organization by moving into a different place on the org chart where you could lead differently. But there's a difference between processing something and stewing in your own juices. And only one of them is actually going to move your career forward. So I want you to decide consciously how much time you're going to give yourself to be upset. So for this person who was talking to me after the keynote, being that raw about not getting the promotion 6 weeks later, well, I'm going to say it was just a little bit indulgent for them to still be stewing in their frustration and anger over not getting promoted. So you need to decide consciously how much time you're going to give yourself to be upset. A day, a weekend? Now, I'm going to say a day and a weekend are not a lot of time. Give yourself a little more than that. Most of us are going to need a week or so to really, really process the emotion of it, but not like 2 weeks or 6 weeks. Well, maybe 2 weeks. I would say 2 weeks would be on the very outset. A day would be on the very inside track. But find the place where you can truly do the emotional processing of your disappointment without getting indulgent about how long you're going to stew. Now, once you've decided, put a note in your calendar so that you hold yourself accountable to the amount of time that you said you were going to take to process this, and then actually do the processing. Whether you're talking to a close friend about it, not just complaining, but like talking it through and trying to figure it out. Whether you're journaling, writing it down, speaking into a voice notes app, whatever it takes for you, working with a therapist or a business coach, whatever it takes for you to actually do the processing. Do that processing so that when you come out the other side of it, you're not holding on to residual anger and frustration towards your organization or towards the person who didn't select you for the promotion. Okay, now we're going to get really, really tactical about this. If you truly want to learn from and recover from not getting the promotion and position yourself to be able to get the promotion the next time and not have to say like, I thought I was the obvious choice again and again and again, then you need to look under the hood and do some diagnostic work to figure out why you didn't get the promotion. Because just saying that manager didn't even explain why I didn't get promoted, or I'm angry about not getting promoted. I don't even know what to do with that anger. Like, that's not helpful. We need to have you look under the hood and find out exactly what happened that you didn't get the promotion. And this is, quite frankly, the part that most people skip. And it's the most important part. You need to find out why. Part of that's going to come from that introspection, but part of that is going to come from frank feedback from other people. Now, this isn't going to be comfortable, but it's the only way to get useful data that you can use to figure out how you're not going to get passed over for the promotion next time. So we need to get some useful data. Now, the most important question here to ask yourself is who is going to give you a straight answer? And not everyone in your organization will give you that straight answer. And there are some obvious choices. There's the hiring manager. There's your HR business partner who was probably involved in the process. And then there is your own manager. So I'm making some assumptions here that you were looking for an internal promotion inside of your organization where you would then be reporting to a different manager. So again, that hiring manager, the HR business partner who is supporting that promotion, and then also your own manager, presuming that is somebody else. Okay, so think about which one of those people is going to give you the best and most honest feedback. Now, ideally, you could get feedback from all three of those and triangulate. Now, you also want to be respectful of other people's time because they've made a choice, it wasn't you, and they've moved on. They might not even entirely remember exactly why you didn't get the promotion, but it is still worthwhile to try to get some valuable feedback from them. And again, if you can get all three, then you can be triangulating 3 data sets to really come up with some solid answers. And that's going to be really, really helpful. Now, it's important when you ask them that you let them know that your feelings will not be hurt by their responses and by their frank feedback. And then you have to take personal responsibility for yourself to not let your feelings get hurt. That's how this works. Now, it might sting in the moment, but it's not something that you are then going to use against them or further complain to anybody about. You're going to take that as like, oh, this is information outside my field of awareness, what some people call their blind spots, and you're going to learn from it. Now, I highly recommend taking lots of notes during conversations like this because you write the things down, then they're captured there for your review later, and you don't have to keep thinking about them in the moment. You could also ask, is it okay if I use an AI recording tool to so that I have the transcript of this conversation to go back and look at? And that can also be really helpful because that frees you up to be really present in the moment, and then you don't have to take notes because you can go back and review that transcript. They may or may not allow that, may or may not be welcome in that conversation. So you may need to take some notes. Again, by taking notes, you write it down, it gets out of your head so that you can be moving on to the next question or the next piece of feedback from them. Now, in this part of the conversation, I want you to be listening for 5 different things. So the first thing to look for is a visibility gap. Does the decision maker above your manager actually know your work and your reputation? Or do you only exist on your manager's radar? Like, how well known are you in the organization? And this really speaks to your personal brand. In fact, this is so important. And I talk to so many people about this. I'm going to do an episode just on this as it relates to promotions as well as just being known inside of your organization for lots of different reasons. So there's a whole episode coming up about this in a couple of weeks. So hang in there for that one. But this is really something to be listening for inside of that conversation, because if you're not a known entity and somebody else who maybe doesn't have as much technical skill or as much leadership skill or whatever as you gets the job because they're more well known, that's going to be very important feedback for you. Again, getting more visibility in the organization is absolutely something that you can do. So it's a solvable problem. So inside of that is good news. Okay, second thing to listen for is a skills gap. Was there a specific competency that they were looking for that you didn't have? Now, this could be a set of technical skills. This could be something more in the leadership realm, especially if you're looking for, again, that promotion. Because again, the question that we're answering here is, I thought I was the obvious choice, but I got passed over for the promotion. Okay, so it could be a leadership competency that they were looking for that you don't have. Again, this is good news because once you know what it is, you can go after those skills and you can learn those skills and you can practice those skills. Maybe you have to look to outside of your organization, your paid work to get more of those skills. So maybe it's volunteering in your civic organizations, in your community, in your school, in your kids' schools, something like that, to find those opportunities to shore up that skills gap, that competency gap. Again, it's good news if it's a skills gap because you can learn skills and you can then be positioning yourself better next time so that you don't get passed over for the promotion the next time if it was based on skills. Okay, the third thing I want you to be listening for is an advocacy gap. Did you clearly and explicitly let the right people know that you really wanted this promotion? Now, assuming that your manager knows it is not the same as advocating for yourself and letting your manager know, I really want this, and I think I would be able to do a great job at this. again, a lot of times we implicitly think that other people know how much we want something, but they might think like you just were like, well, I'll put my name in the hat and see what comes of it. If you really wanted that promotion, you need to let people know that you want it and that you're ready for it. Okay, that brings me to the fourth thing I want you to be listening for, and that is timing. Are you really ready for it? Are you genuinely well positioned for this promotion? Or are you, as I like to say, promotion adjacent? Like you're close, but you're not quite there yet. So sometimes the honest answer you're going to hear from somebody is not yet. You don't quite have the right skills, the right experience. You're not ready yet. And again, that is really helpful feedback, because then a great follow-up question is, what will it take for me to be ready? What does readiness look like? And then you can start to work towards filling in that gap from where you are now to what readiness looks like, so that the next time a promotion comes around, you have what it takes to get promoted the next time. All right, and the fifth thing I want you to be listening for is what I call the invisible ceiling. Are you so good at your current job that leadership can't possibly picture you leaving that role to do something else? Now, this one is sneaky and it's more common than people think. So a good question to ask is, if I had gotten that promotion, what do you think my backfill would look like? Or what do you think the department would look like without me as I moved into this other role? And if you start hearing people saying things like, oh, we can't imagine what it would be like to have you leave that role, you're irreplaceable, that sort of thing, then that's good feedback for you, because then that helps know what you might need to do laterally to help develop your coworkers so that you are not such a unicorn that they can't imagine your unit functioning without you. Again, all of these things are good things to know. And again, those 5 things, again, here, I'll quickly recap them. Visibility, how well are you known in the organization? Skills, was there a skills gap, something that you didn't have that role needed? Number 3, advocacy gap. Do people really know how much you wanted this? Are you advocating for yourself? Number 4, timing. Were you genuinely ready for this promotion? And number 5, that invisible ceiling. You're so good at your current job that they can't imagine your unit working without you. Okay, so those are questions that you can specifically be asking or listening for, or some combination of both. Now, the next logical thing that people ask me are, well, I feel so embarrassed, or I feel so jaded, or whatever it is that I just can't imagine staying in this organization anymore. So I have to leave. And cue up the song from The Clash, should I stay or should I go? Because that is the question people are asking themselves. Now, once you have that diagnosis from those first 5 things that we just talked about, now it's time to ask yourself that question, should I stay or should I go? A lot of times people are just like jumping the gun and saying, I'm out of here, and just cutting all ties. But I want you to get explicit about the criteria you're going to use to decide if you're going to stay or if you're going to go. Now, and again, I think a lot of people just choose to leave or choose to just like pray and spray their resume all over the internet to look for something else because their feelings are hurt. But if you found out something specific from those 5 areas that you were looking at about what was missing, like why it was you got passed over for that promotion, that's going to be incredibly helpful in your own professional development to get to the next level. And to take a lateral move to a different organization where you have to prove yourself all over again might be more of a setback than a bump forward, especially if it's a lateral move. Now, if you can go get the next higher level role, something akin to the promotion you were trying for elsewhere, well, then that might just absolutely be the logical choice for you. If that's what you really want, is that next level up. Now, again, if you're just taking a lateral move to a different organization, you're basically starting from ground zero on a lot of those things we were just talking about in terms of creating the relationships inside the organization, being known for things, and so on. So let's parse this out 2 different ways, if you stay and if you go. So if you stay, you want to get that explicit criteria from your manager. What does promotion ready me look like specifically, so that the next time around, I'm ready for it. And ideally, get it in writing if you can. So that might mean you taking notes during that conversation and then you sending those notes back to your manager in an email and say, hey, just to recap our discussion, you said that these 5 bullet points or these 3 things or whatever it was were the missing link for me, standing between me and getting the promotion the next time around. Do I have this right? So that, again, it's not necessarily binding, but you're going to get some, when you have it codified like that, it's much easier for you to stick to developing the skills as well. Number 2, set a timeline. So you might say to yourself, okay, I'm going to stick it out for another 18 months in this organization. I've put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this organization. I have friends here. I've built good, strong relationships here. I have a strong professional reputation in this organization, but give it a timeline so that it's not an open-ended waiting game. So, 12 months is reasonable. 18 months is generous, but in that time frame, you have some work to do. Again, you're working on whatever gaps you found in that first part of the analysis. And then, of course, it's a little bit of a waiting game for a promotional opportunity to come available, because depending on what kind of line of work you're in and the size of your organization, sometimes they just don't come around that often. A third thing to do if you're going to stay is find a sponsor. So I want to make a distinction here between a sponsor and a mentor. A mentor is the person you can ask dumb questions to, and the person who's going to, help you learn about the organization or your own vertical. Ideally, they're not your manager or in your line of reporting. That's why you can ask the dumb questions to them. But a sponsor is different. A sponsor is a person who's going to advocate for you. A sponsor is a person who is going to say your name in rooms when you're not there. And they're going to say, well, let me tell you about a time when Janelle did a bang up job on this project. Or have you seen the latest work that Janelle's doing in this XYZ space? So they're going to be promoting you in ways that you can't necessarily promote yourself. Now, it's not as easy to get a sponsor as it is to get a mentor. In fact, I should probably do a whole episode on sponsorship because it is different than mentorship. But a sponsor is, again, somebody who is going to champion you and your work and speak positively about you when you're not around. It goes hand in hand with that whole personal brand inside your organization. Now, if you do choose to leave, I want it to be intentional and strategic. So this should not be an emotional decision. The worst time to search for a job is when you're angry, because if and when you get the opportunity to interview, that anger and, when they ask the question, well, why are you interested in looking for a new job? Well, I didn't get promoted the last time. It might not be quite that overstated, but it's going to seep in. Your negative energy is going to seep into your job interview. So you want to be completely emotionally healed before you start to think about leaving. So this should not be an emotional decision. Take the diagnostic data with you so that you don't land in the same situation in the next place. Because how bad would it be for you to be saying, like, my manager didn't even explain why again, and this keeps happening to me. Okay, you don't want that. So you're going to take that diagnostic data with you. You're going to learn from it. You're going to grow professionally in this next role. And again, the third thing, and this kind of ties back to the first thing, but you want to leave clean. You want to leave with bridges intact. You're not burning your bridges on the way out. That is not helpful at all for anyone. Okay, so if you are that person who has recently been passed over by a promotion, or maybe you realize, oh, it wasn't that recent, but I'm really hanging on to it, here is what to do when you don't get promoted. We've talked about all the things in this podcast episode. So here is your call to action. This week, have at least one honest conversation with somebody who will tell you the truth if you have been passed over for a promotion at work and you don't know why. I want you to go in with zero defensiveness and one question. What would promotion-ready me look like? And then what you do with the answer is up to you. So being passed over is not the end of the story. Have being passed over for a promotion simply be a data point. And the question is whether you are going to put that data into play to make your next career move just a little bit closer. All right, my friends, have a great week, and I'll be back here on the Working Conversations next week answering more of your questions. Take care.